patriarchy has been written into the Constitution, Elgin finally turns the subtext that women face every day into the headline, stripped of the hints and whispers that make us wonder if it's just in our heads. The novel magnifies these dynamics so that even men can see what it's like to function as a woman in this world. Women, of course, don't need the exaggerated versions. We have already learned in a much harder way. Yes, anger simmers in the book's very structure, barely contained by the narrative. But this is one of the most important uses of a novel, as a crafted channel for the emotions we experience in life. Perhaps, in this case, it is all the more valuable because there are so few productive channels for rage. The first book of the Native Tongue trilogy introduces Láadan, but it is in this second book that the language begins to spread. The Judas Rose builds momentum in a series of loosely connected vignettes that take the listener to unexpected places, much like the wild vine, whose symbolism is central to the book. In one interlude, cetacean linguistic philosophy suddenly takes on immense importance. Moments like these will surprise and delight any dedicated reader of science fiction. But Elgin is ruthless and unrelenting. She appears to take a vicious pleasure in verbal sparring. Surprisingly, the Judas Rose does not become mired in cynicism. Even while the characters find ever more creative ways to use language for harm, the central driver of the plot is the hope that language can also be used for change. The heart of the novel is about communicating women's experiences, our yearning for beauty, and our need for connection. It asks, could a more empathetic language bring about a more empathetic world? Elgin constructed Láadan and gave it a universe to suggest how that might be done. There is one episode in the book in which a sentence of Láadan is elaborately deconstructed, when the nun ordered to investigate the language demonstrates to a group of priests how a verse from the King James Bible has been translated. The King James is considered by many Christian denominations to be the most beautiful of all the English translations. It is the translation I know best, because it's the one Mormons most revere. Here, "Thou anointest my head with oil" becomes "Ba'abin nadelith lathath oma nathanan." Thou braidest my hair with thine own hands. The nun explains that the translation seeks to render the sense of our Lord performing some act that would be an honor to a human being. And a woman, fathers, a woman would not wish to be anointed with oil. That would be a messy procedure. Page 233. On the other hand, I would consider it an inexpressible honor if divine hands were to braid my hair. It is an intimate service, and one that demands closeness. Page 234. By its very nature, Láadan is structured to express a feminist perspective, even when used to translate overwhelmingly patriarchal works of the Western canon. What would my endowment have been like had the ceremony similarly been translated into Láadan? Perhaps then, my parents' interpretation of my tears would have been right. Rebecca Romney, May 2019. Preface. Some years ago, it was our great privilege to publish the novel called Native Tongue. So extraordinary did we find that privilege that we published the work as a book in paper, rather than in microfiche or chiplet. The book was more than simply unusual. It brought with it two mysteries. First, we did not know who its author was, only that it had been written by one or more women of Chornyak household. Second, we did not know the name of the scholar who had safeguarded the manuscript. It was sent to us by messenger, and the brief note of transmittal was unsigned. We have no more information on either of those matters today than we did then. But we have new reason to be grateful to our unknown benefactor, because a second volume of the work has now been made available to us for publication.